section of the course, we're going to get into one of the very cool modules in Ruby, which are procs and lambdas. If you have worked in other programming languages before, then these might have been called closures in those languages, but what they essentially are at the highest level is they are methods that can be stored inside of variables, or there are processes that can be stored inside of variables, and then they can be called separately. So let's create a relatively basic example right here called full underscore name, and I'm going to set this equal to proc.new, and then in curly brackets I'm going to show you two different syntaxes for doing this, but I'm going to start off where it's just one line, and I'm going to say first comma last, and surround that with pipes. And then I'm going to say first plus a string with a space, and then last. Okay, and now if I want to call this, there's a few different ways I can. So I can just use the variable name and use brackets and then pass in my arguments here. So I'm going to say Jordan, comma, Hudgens, and print this out. Hit run, and it prints out Jordan Hudgens. And now if this is one way of calling it. The other way of calling it is to put the variable name and say dot call, and then parentheses put your two arguments. Hit run, and there you go, it prints them out both the same. So this may look a little bit weird, so I want to kind of retrace our steps back here a little bit and see exactly what's going on. So we have full name is equal to what we just did, proc new. So what this is doing is it's creating a new instance of a proc here, and a proc can take a block as the argument. And so what it's doing is when we're doing these curly braces, this is a code block right here. And with this code block, we're passing in two different arguments. The first one is first and last, and these go inside of pipes. And then after that, we can call these just like variables. They're only available inside of this code block, but we can call them and do anything that we want to them. I could change this and get rid of last and say first times 5, and then here when I want to do name, because I got rid of last, I can hit run, and you can see it prints out my first name 5 times in a row. So you can do anything you want right here. Now this is one syntax for writing it. I wanted to show you another one so that you can see something a little more familiar. This proc new, or these curly braces, could be changed into a more traditional code block. And so I could do this, and this is the exact same thing. So if I hit run, you can see it runs just like normal. So we've already gone through and seen a few different code blocks where you have a do and an end. And this is the exact same thing as when we had it all on one line when you have the curly braces. The curly braces are required in Ruby when you want to put everything on one line, but if you want to, you could run a full program here and store it in full name and then pass that in, or pass arguments into that, and it's a great way of being able to call it. So why would you want to use something like this instead of a traditional method? And it's mainly because you have a little bit more flexibility this way. You could technically have done, you could have definitely done all of this using a regular method where you say def full underscore name, take in the first and last right here, and then you could say first and last, and then you could have called it full name and then, you know, passed in your arguments here. And this would have done the exact same thing. But the one big reason is it's a very nice syntax when you can store everything inside of a variable. So we're essentially putting an entire process inside this variable, and then we can call this using just regular bracket notation or using the call method, which is definitely something very helpful. The other thing is you're going to find this comes in really handy in real life programs like Rails. So when it comes to building out database query scopes, it's actually required that you use a lambda, which is we're going to go into shortly, which is very similar to a proc. It's required to use lambda syntax in order to build out your database query. So this is, I'm not teaching you this just so you can learn something else. Everything that I teach you, I want it to be something very practical that you'll be able to use in real life applications. And so this is one of them, is understanding procs and lambdas and being able to know how to create them, how to instantiate them, how to store them, and then how to call them. And so in the next video, we're going to get into how to do the same thing using lambdas.